Diaries of a Madman. By what must I do? Chapter 200, The Awakening, Part 3 of 3. When I got there, I was in for a fairly decent surprise. Taya was petting a cockatrice. Taya got one as a pet while you were in the coma, Daria explained for me, thankfully in my head. I imagined she wanted to wait until you weren't around to tell her no. Obviously. So, this is your new pet? I ask, walking up to it. Yep. Taya said, looking up with a surprisingly non-creepy smile. Flo named her Roxy. Because she turns people into rocks. I slowly ask. Wait, what? Taya shouted. I thought it was Roxy, with an X. I'm pretty sure that was Flo's punishment for making her tame a cockatrice, I said. Wrong, Flo herself said out loud. I did it just to annoy you. I knew you'd be the only one who got it. Of course. Thanks, Flo, I said. Truly, elemental of the year. I sat next to my filly and finally looked around the room. Gilda, Spike, the maids, and the Naga were no longer in the room. That just left Taya, her pet, Twilight, and the two elementals. Twilight, how goes the search for instructors at my academy? About that. If you've been too busy, I understand, I said. I never gave you a real time frame, so that's fine. I will need some names before we actually break ground, though. No, that's not the issue, Twilight said, sighing. Celestia heard what you were planning. A day later, she gave me a full dossier of basically everything you were asking for. Inventors, crafts ponies, mages, alchemists. Hey, she even included active members of the Royal Guard who would serve as guest professors. I'm not going to be able to do anything without that woman getting her hooves in it, am I? I slowly ask. Oh yeah, it's far too late, Twilight said. She's essentially gonna have you bound hand and foot, Nav. In hindsight, it was obvious this would happen when we chose to spare her, especially since you were one of those who voted to do so. She liked you before all this happened, so now that she's actually purified, why do you think she'd want to let you go? She enjoys spending time with you, she knows your plans will help everyone if they're implemented properly and with care, and since you chose to leave her autonomous, she has the authority to force her way into any project she can't manage to finagle her way into. Thankfully, it's not all downsides, I said, though my wings and shoulders sagged. It'll be super annoying, but having the power of the princess directly behind me, working with me instead of against me, will be valuable. And as much as I hate to admit it, she'll probably be able to more wisely do some of the things I planned so they'll hurt fewer people. Wait, what are you planning? Twilight asked. Well, I do plan on making a bunch of weapons, but that's not what I meant by that. Every time there's a technological breakthrough of some kind, someone always walks away hurt. I mean, think about using Jonathan to harvest massive amounts of crops so we can give free food to everyone. Applejack would be out of work, Twilight slowly said. Anyone with a cutie mark in farming would be done for, I replied with a nod. Obviously a few would be needed here and there, but on the whole, their livelihoods would be gone. One possible solution is to have him only harvest a few staple crops like wheat, lentils, and oats. I'd need Celestia's information on crop yields to find out what would have the least impact, and her knowledge of historical trends would be just as valuable. Yep, the coma definitely did something, Twilight said, smiling. You had a lot of grand plans before, but it's sounding like you're starting to put more thoughts into them. Good, I'm glad I didn't waste 3 weeks. After everything that's happened, even having Celestia in the same room with me puts me on edge, but I'll just have to keep reminding myself that Nulscha is different. I don't like the idea of her meddling in all of my business, but I know there's no choice in the matter and I'm also aware that it'll be mostly beneficial. So. Whatever, I guess. Now, I have a different question. Have you begun research into Tartarus? I haven't, Twilight said. I decided to leave that to the actual soldiers, since they'll know more about what's important and what isn't. I've been too busy with other things, unfortunately. Understandable. I did dump a bunch of work on everyone before leaving, after all. Luna will probably be the only one with the info I'm looking for. I guess it would be easier to ask what you have been working on, then. I've been helping at the bunker, studying some of the artifacts that were pulled out, comparing them to similar artifacts mentioned in various archives to see if there might be other possible human settlements to dig up, writing some of my own things, and working on necromancy here and there. Did you find any other possible human settlements? I ask. I've found 4 locations of interest, Twilight said. One is the capital of the Minotaurs. Given that you're their forerunner, that was an obvious one. One is on the island north of mainland Europe, what Flo calls Britain. Another is on mainland Europe. The last item was said to originate in China, but I don't know the exact location. Interesting. So it's possible there are more human bunkers out there waiting to be discovered. It's entirely possible, yes, Twilight said with a nod. Zecora believes they've lasted so long due to the undead energy permeating them. After spending so much time around hostile undead spirits, she believes she can actually track large sources of their energy. It's possible we could use her to pinpoint the locations once we get close enough. That's super spooky, but kinda cool, I said. Before we could continue, the cockatrice jumped up into my lap. It was surprising, but after a moment or two, I began petting her. Her body didn't feel that great against my hands, but she seemed to enjoy it. Where's Princess Gilda's thief, Felix? He's also been working at the bunker, helping explore the lower levels, Twilight said. Has he been useful? I don't know. I haven't been on any expeditions with him. I haven't heard any complaints, though. Then I'll probably end up hiring him, I guess. It's a shame about his personality, but if I can put up with Luna, I guess I can put up with him. Is that going to be possible? Twilight asked. Isn't Gilda going to execute him when the expedition is over? No, she promised him freedom in exchange for working with us, I said. And if she means to break that promise, then I'll talk her out of it. Royals can't go around breaking promises, after all. No one should break promises, Twilight said. True. Oh, and Rainbow Dash is upset with you, Twilight said. When Spike and Gilda started telling her stories about the bunker, she demanded to know why she wasn't invited. I'm sure she'll probably get over it, I replied with a shrug. Ava says you should consider the feelings of your friends, Taya said. Wait, what? Why are you talking to her? I asked. I wanted to know what a Xerox was, Taya replied with a shrug. Is talking to a ghost wise? Twilight asked. Ava's not an enemy, I said. But I'm hesitant to call her a friend because that might make her feel full of herself or get all smug and annoying. She's offended by that characterization, Taya said. And she's encouraging Roxy to petrify you. Is she saying petrifying or is she saying stone? I ask. Yeah, she's telling Roxy to stone you. Is that different from petrify? Stoning someone means to kill them by throwing rocks at them, I said. It's a thing that was popular with her religion a few hundred years before either of us was born. She was just making a pun. Anyway, there's really nothing I can do for Dashi. It's not like I can turn back the clock and invite her. Has anyone taken her there yet? Of course, Twilight said. Though she wasn't allowed to go past any of the haunted areas. She was mostly interested in the weather control, of course. She was also really disappointed that we already knocked down the shield. You better do something to make it up to her, Nav. I'm sure I can figure something out, I said, rolling my eyes. Flo, Twilight said we found some cultural stuff. Anything interesting? No, nothing you'd want, Flo said. They're all either things you don't recognize or things you don't care about. Celestia just wanted to make sure you had the chance to pick through them in case there actually was something you wanted. Since, as you reminded her so pointedly, your expedition was the one that succeeded. I'm a little interested just to see what's there, but I don't see any reason to keep a human artifact just because humans made it. I don't need any old boring junk lying around the house. I'd prefer old cool junk. Zecora did make sure none of it was haunted, right? Yes, we cleared it all, Twilight said. From the locations of the artifacts we've recovered so far, it seems obvious that the previous explorers didn't have anything like an elemental to assist them. It really seems strange to me that none of them encountered any of the other iterations of you. There's no telling what the other mess got up to, I said. Or who their allies could have been. I'm sure some of them had things more fantastical than I do. I'm also pretty sure some of them died horribly shortly after they woke up, assuming Discord didn't help keep them going. Equestria's incredibly dangerous in some places, and that's even with a dictator ruling over it with an iron hoof. I'm sure in the past, conditions were probably worse at times. Speaking of, has anyone found a hint on getting me a soul yet? Unfortunately, souls don't just grow on trees, Twilight said. Instead, they grow in wombs. And since everybody I know of also grew in a womb, there wasn't really a need to impart a soul on anything before. So I'm sad to say the search is going to take some time. A simple no would have sufficed. The emergency surgery solution seems to be an effective option, at least, I said. It'll be harder to make me look like him if I can just cut off everything that bastard gives me. It'll really suck to be without an arm or a leg for a while, so we can visit the dragons in Iceland, let me become a fire host, and then push the fire in a volcano. After that, we can chop everything off and it'll grow back instantly. What do you think about your new extremities, now that you've had a few minutes? Twilight asked. I think it might be time to test out the wings. Want to go out back and throw me off the cliff? There are probably safer ways to test it, Twilight said as we all stood. Lacking any better options, I draped the cockatrice around my shoulders. It hung on, gazing all around us menacingly. To be honest, I kinda wanted to try using it like that in a fight, but that would have to come later. What's wrong with throwing mommy off a cliff? Taya asked. That sounds like fun for the whole family. If it works for birds, I guess it'll work for tree sisters, Daria said, lifting me up with a small tidal wave. With her as my chariot, we slid out into the cold. Everyone followed us out, all the way to the cliff's edge. Are you really sure this is a good idea? Twilight asked. You could literally just try flapping them first. I mean, you did just have surgery. Don't be a fucking pussy, I said. That's Kot's job, after all. Daria, toss me. As you command, she replied with glee. Her body sucked me all the way in and spat me right back out, throwing me clear off the cliff. Thankfully, she held on to Roxy for me. Since scaring Twilight was the goal, I decided to let myself fall for a few seconds before actually trying to fly. As soon as my wings flapped once, I slowed down a lot more than I should have, given their weight. I looked over my shoulders and saw that the veins were lighting up as they flapped. At this point, they seemed to work more on magic than logic or physics. With that in mind, I finally pulled out of my plummet and started angling back up. The first thing I noticed was that flying was now considerably easier. Before, my wings were large and ungainly, which made flapping them a nightmare. They were also in a bad location on my body, so the muscles there really weren't built for it. Since the new wings didn't seem to require muscles, that meant I could become a leaf on the wind, hopefully minus a huge spear through the chest. The second thing I noticed was really more of an addendum to the first. Not only was flying easier, I was also more agile in the air. Smaller wings that I didn't have to flap as often gave me a very small turn radius. That would make fighting in the air much easier. And the last thing I noticed is that I still wasn't all that fast. It couldn't have all been good news, of course. Since teleporting was still faster than flying, I wasn't going to complain about the results. Speed has its uses, but my body probably wouldn't be capable of flying too fast anyway. By the time I discovered everything I was interested in, it was getting dark. I flew back to the cliff where everyone was still waiting. As soon as I landed, Taya hugged me. "You were so pretty, Mommy. Just like a fairy dancing through the air." "I'm sure my parents would be so proud," I said, patting her on the head. "These wings work much better than my previous sets." "That's good, at least," Twilight said. "I could feel the magic usage from here, though. I could also clearly see it, from the green lines in your wings. You probably won't be able to fly stealthily anymore. It looked like you were definitely moving around better than before, though." "Yep. I'm interested to see if my speed can actually increase, but that'll have to wait until I'm sure I'm healed. Now I just need a victim to test my tail on." "That's easy enough," Taya said. "Once I finish up a new seed, you can just—" "I'm not murdering my filly," I said. "It's still pretty easy," Daria said. "We can change the density of our bodies to some extent, at least to the point where it would be as hard as a pony. I don't know if I'll be able to mimic bones, though." "It won't hurt you, will it?" I ask. "No. That would require fire or magic." "It's possible my tail is some kind of magical attack," I said. "I think I'll wait until the next time I go to the Everfree. If my new wings work more on magic now, I don't want to risk testing my new tail on an ally. Now, let's get back inside, out of the cold." At least the weather was better than when I went into the coma. Of course, saying something like that meant Cod immediately cuddled up against me. Taya was about to push up against my leg, but graciously allowed Twilight to take her spot instead. Walking back to the house like that was something of a pain, but it was a lot warmer than walking back alone. The team stationed at the bunker was waiting for us in the sunroom, all sitting around tables. To be honest, I was kinda surprised some of them didn't join us outside, but I guess they were working on self-control. "Welcome back, my lady," Watcher said, standing up to bow. The rest of his soldiers followed suit. "It's good to be back home," I replied. "The coma was pretty interesting. I got to see all kinds of things. After we eat, while everyone's still down here, I have some things to talk about." "How are you feeling?" Watcher asked. "Did you get the answers you were looking for?" "I'm feeling pretty swell, I guess. I can't say I got all the answers I was looking for, but I learned far more than I was expecting. I'd say it was worth 3 weeks. If nothing else, it served as a good recap for me. Also, I've discovered a new means of communication via water elemental, so I can contact all of you whenever I need. Daria, would you kindly—" "Who is Daria?" Watcher asked as the new elemental slid forward to embrace him. "I killed Aqua," I replied. "Daria is the new elemental. Apparently her name means sea in a human language." She finished hugging Watcher and slid over to Luna. "She's giving you just enough water to facilitate communication, instead of actually making you hosts. This way, we can communicate wherever we are." "Blaze and I were working on a similar network," Luna said, but she didn't make any attempt to avoid Daria as she was hugged. "Instant communication is incredibly valuable. It makes responding to the flow of the battlefield considerably easier." "Sure does," I said. "Especially if the other side doesn't have it." "Should I infect the others as well?" Daria asked, releasing Luna and turning back to me. "No need to stretch you too thin," I said. "Besides, the chain of command exists for a reason. Just get Gord whenever he returns, so I have all my vassals covered." "Wasn't Princess Gilda at the bunker, too?" "I figured she would have been here with everyone else. She's been pining for her lost lover for 3 weeks," Watcher said. So obviously, we waited to tell her you were back until we got to the house. As soon as we told her, she flew straight to her room. I really hope that means she doesn't miss me, after all. I'm not holding my breath, though. Luna, block the door for a moment, so neither of the Gildas can get in or hear us. Her horn lit up and a barrier appeared over the door. All right, I need an out with the princess. I discovered that I slept with her entirely due to Aqua. She set the whole thing up to get Gilda under her influence. Gilda's way too immature to be my type, even if I do enjoy the noises she makes. And even if the thought of teasing an innocent princess in public is super hot. Telling her might be an option, but I'm worried she'll get angry and my relations with the Griffins will suffer. So, what's the best way to break things off? You really don't give us any easy tasks, do you? Watcher asked. Maturity is something that can be grown into, Twilight said. Getting her while she's still young means you can teach her to be whatever you want. Well, there's also another problem with that, I said. I was getting tired of standing, so I walked over and sat at Luna's table. Luna, tell me what you know about the wish-granting genie that Nestorats supposedly owns. I know enough that what you wish for might be possible. However, I also learned that this genie is evil and conniving, and that any wish made contains the risk for great consequences. The wishes have certain rules, but I believe nothing you'd ask for would violate them. And when were you planning on telling me about this genie? I ask. Once I was certain it actually existed. As of now, I am only fairly sure it's out there. As soon as I was certain, I intended to inform you. Do the descriptions of the genie mention if it had 3 eyes? I ask. That does match, yes, she slowly replied. Were the memories you witnessed truly that detailed? No, that was a hint from Pinkie Pie, I said. Before I left Equestria, she came by my house and told me to look out for the 3-eyed genie. Neither of us had any idea what she was talking about, but she's weird enough that I'm willing to bet it was some kind of prophecy. And if what you said about prophecies is true, this is one fate that we are going to turn into reality. So, a wish-granting genie. Twilight said. Does that mean you can wish to become male again? That's what I'm hoping, I said. Princess Gilda's a carpet muncher. It wouldn't be right to give her hope when I have every intention of trying to turn back. Regardless of how it's worded, you'll basically need to tell Gilda it's off, Watcher said. As it is right now, you could blame it on the coma. The longer you put it off, though, the more difficult it will be. If you want to do this, it needs to be done quickly. Man, maybe I should have just married Celestia after all, I said. That's a very permanent solution for an extremely temporary problem, Twilight said, huffing just a little. I understand your reasons for wanting to break things off with Princess Gilda. Why don't you just tell her that you've found a way to become male again and break it off because of that? It's better than telling her that you just don't like her personality. Even after 3 weeks away, she still seems infatuated with you. If sooner is better and I have a plan for what to tell her, do you think I should bite the bullet and do it now? I ask. What does bite the bullet mean? Luna asked. Humanity's art of war grew faster than its art of medicine, I said. Specifically, we developed guns before we developed ways to cure gunshot wounds effectively. A single round fired from a gun is called a bullet, and they're made of lead. After a battle, wounded soldiers would be told to bite onto a bullet while the medic gets to work on them, to stop them from screaming or biting their tongue off from pain. Apparently bullets were in bigger supply than sticks or leather. What it basically means is to stop putting off an unpleasant task and do it immediately. Then yes, that would probably be best, Watcher said. If I had to guess, I'd say she's upstairs in her room, trying to pretty herself up for you. I'll be back in a few minutes. I shrugged caught off and started walking. Do you want me to go with you? Twilight asked. I feel like that might be twisting the knife a little too much. I'll hold you in reserve, in case she gets angry or too distraught. Just stay down here for now. Daria or Flo can let you know if you're needed. What does twisting the knife mean? Luna asked. And why are all human sayings so interesting? When you stab someone and twist the knife inside them, it hurts a lot more and damages them even more internally, I said. It basically means to increase the amount of damage something does. In this case, I'm about to deliver bad news to Gilda. I feel like having Twilight there would hurt Gilda more. This is something that's better done alone. With that, I left the sunroom behind. As soon as I got into the anteroom, I smelled something amazing. Someone was obviously cooking a lot of meat in the kitchen, presumably Spike, his Gilda, and the Naga. Soon their meat would be filling me up, so I ignored it for now and went to the stairs. I stopped in front of Princess Gilda's door. Avoiding confrontations like this was usually my standard solution, but I couldn't let myself stay non-confrontational forever. A deep breath did nothing at all to calm me, so I just forced myself to knock instead of waiting for what felt like the right moment. To my surprise, the door opened only a few seconds later. Aurora was on the other side, wearing a gentle smile. It's kinda hard to tell with the beak, but he conveyed it well. Yes, my lady. I'd like to speak to the princess. Also, what are you doing here? I am assisting Her Highness in getting ready. She was hoping to see you afterwards. How long do you think it'll take? A princess can't rush these things, my lady. Do I need to ask again? Probably not more than half an hour. Just how dirty did she get at the bunker? Or does she really want to impress me that much? Ugh, this is already becoming a pain. I hope you don't mind, but I'm about to do something unladylike. As an unladylike maid to her unladylike lady, I can't and won't judge you. Good. Move. He curtsied and stepped aside. Normally they'd make you be a eunuch to do this kind of thing. You lucky dog. His warm smile became more of a smirk, but he didn't reply. I finally entered the princess's room. Aurora left behind me, closing the door. Of course, it happened to be right as Gilda was walking out of her bathroom, almost completely soaked. Nav. It only took her a second to recover, though. Well. I did just get out of the shower. Shall we celebrate your joyous return together, Navi? You really cut straight to it, hey? I said. Not even a welcome back or a hello. You barged into my room. Fair enough. So, I'm pretty sure I found a way to become male again. She blinked. It'll take me a little while to get it, but if I do, I have every intention of turning back. I swear to someone, if you say it doesn't matter and you want me anyway. I see. Well, marrying you was always a long shot. I got here late to the race, after all. Anyway, shall we celebrate your joyous return together, Navi? I just told you that I had every intention of turning back. What does that have to do with the lovely lady I see before me right now? Gilda asked. Actually. Wait, did your body change? It looks softer, I guess. Yes, one of the goddesses in the book messed with my body. And right now, are you thinking with your princess head or are you thinking with your lewd bird Gina? Lewd what? She looked back at her lower body for a moment before turning forward with a glare. It's a lioness Gina, thank you very much. I don't have a cloaca. And it doesn't matter which I'm thinking with if we don't get caught. Why do you ask? Did your coma tell you something? The coma told me a lot of things. One of them is that I got addicted to sex again and that I seriously need to cut back. Another is that I really need to either get married to someone with an established power base or I need to establish my own power base. I'm going to start working on the second while considering and shopping around for the first. Shopping around? You make it sound so debasing. That's all marriages of power are about, I said. I come with knowledge, influence, and a variety of skills, along with a few very useful vassals with invaluable talents. I'm looking for a place where my safety will essentially be guaranteed no matter what. That means leveraging what I have to marry high. Now that I think I have a way to turn back to a guy, I actually feel comfortable considering marriage. TCH, figures, she muttered, looking away. So you're saying you want to cut what we have off, then? I don't want to, but I know it's for the best. That said, I can absolutely introduce you to some people who have no idea you're a princess and would be happy to do things with you. With the coming pageant, that's unwise, she said. All right, second option, I said with a grin. Twilight knows a spell that can turn you into a pony. Or a changeling. Or human. Or house cat. She's shown me a few of those, she said, blushing slightly. I hadn't thought to use one as a disguise, but it makes perfect sense. But... are you sure you'll cut me off? Truly. She finally drew closer and smiled. I've been practicing to get better for you. Daria, buff my willpower. I don't know if she actually did anything, but I powered through anyway. Unfortunately, I'm sure. I enjoyed it while it lasted, but a princess can't be a lesbian, Gilda said, hanging her head. Being a lesbian has less to do with it than sleeping around, I think, I said. We'd both probably get in just as much trouble, if not more, if I got caught having sex with you as a guy. Forced marriage would be the best fate waiting for you, she said. And I know I threatened it once, but I have no intention of telling anyone about this. And I have every intention to continue my studies with Twilight. And, you will introduce me to a few of those friends, later. I will, I said. Come downstairs when you're ready. After dinner, I have some things to announce that you'll want to hear. I shall be down shortly. Would you mind sending Aurora back in? Do you think she would be willing to comfort her princess? Aurora is dating someone else who works here, so no. I bopped her on the beak and let myself out. My cross-dressing maid was on the other side of the door, still smirking. The princess requests your presence. You know, I wouldn't mind taking care of Her Highness's lewd lioness Gina, he quietly replied. Well, I mind, I said. If you try your luck, I'll tell her what you're hiding under that uniform. Of course, my lady, he replied with a perfect curtsy. I left him there, finally heading back down the 4 ridiculous flights of stairs. When I bought this place, it was with the assumption that I could at least fly down the stairs. Being a lady is the worst. Before I could continue internally complaining, I got swept away by a flood of pink water that quickly became Flo hugging me. She was also slowly ferrying me down the stairs. You really do feel nicer in my arms now, Navi, Flo sweetly said. You know, I have a question for you. Why did you ask Daria for a buff instead of your favorite? I didn't ask her to, I told her to. If I wanted to ask someone to do something, it would be you. But since she volunteered to be my servant, I was giving her an order. It also served as a test for her adaptability, to see if she was capable of following orders like that. But you don't even know if she followed it or not, Flo said. Did she? That has nothing to do with the point here, Flo said. You blindly trusted in her in your moment of need instead of me. Relationships can't be built without giving trust, I said. I have to start somewhere. Or would you rather I just ignore her request to serve me and just let her talent go fallow? Your mind is so fun to watch, Flo said, snuggling me slightly tighter. I felt my arms slip inside of her and she clamped them in place. It works so quickly to come up with excuse after excuse. I missed you too, Flo, I said, trying not to sound nervous. But isn't this a little too much? I learned things from your coma, too, Flo said, leaning in to kiss my nose. I learned that no one but me can be trusted with you, Navi. Well, you made that sound ominous as shit. Daria is brand new. We don't know if she can or can't be trusted with me. It would also help a little if she'd speak up to defend herself. Sorry, I was having fun just listening in, Daria replied in my head. I have no intentions of mishandling Navarone. I've seen the things that happen to those who do. I also have no intentions of usurping Flo's place. I do not need the title of favorite. Being useful is enough. Outside of willpower, I can temporarily buff your endurance, dexterity, perception, and overall combat abilities. Aqua was quite the warmonger in her younger days, if you can believe it. Much better than being able to play a piano, that's for sure. The hug got tighter and this time my legs were sucked in. Flo giggled and said, I heard that, Navi. It's extremely unfair that you can hold things I think against me. I can't help that I'm internally ungrateful. I'm not holding it against you, silly, Flo said. I'm holding you against me. Well, we're downstairs now, so you can let go. As you wish. She slid away, making sure I safely returned to my feet. There will be all the time in the world to snuggle in your dreams. I thought several unpleasant things. Instead of commenting on any of them, she wrapped her arm around mine and led me into the sunroom. So how'd it go? Taya asked as soon as she saw me. The grin on her face was a little unwarranted, in my opinion. Better than expected. I now have one fewer royal playthings, and I didn't even have to deal with any tears. With Flo guiding my steps, I didn't get to choose a seat. She planted me down between my filly and cot. The table also contained Luna, Watcher, and Twilight. It's such a surprise to hear you say that fewer royal playthings is better than you were expecting, Watcher said. I thought you liked bragging about how many you've slept with. Yeah, but that was kinda rude, I said. And unwise for a variety of reasons. I got to see a lot of scary cat fights in that coma, some of which involved royalty. Luna looked away, rubbing the back of her neck. My life will be easier and safer if I stop most of my lecherous ways. You know, assuming the others actually let me stop. So who all is making the cut? Twilight slowly asked. I hope to have that completely determined by the time we find the genie, I said. Gilda was the only one I was in a hurry to get rid of, because that started entirely on false pretenses. Then it's time to start competing in earnest, Twilight said with a nod. Her horn lit up and she used magic to swap places with Cot. My kitty glared at her, but was smart enough not to say anything. I'll make sure to welcome you back properly tonight, Nav. I'm pretty sure I got addicted to sex again. I don't know how often I should scratch that particular itch. It's been 3 weeks, right? Twilight said. I think that's long enough for a reward night. It might be. For now, I need an energy boost. The dark is starting to get to me. Twilight's horn lit up and poked me. Your delicious purpleness is rejuvenating my weary bones. For some reason, that made her blush. Delicious purpleness? Cod asked, sounding a little bit disgusted. Right, I forgot you guys don't see magic auras. I guess that wouldn't make sense. Whenever unicorns use magic, their horns light up a certain color. Twilight's is purple. The things their magic affects also glow that color. So when she uses magic on me, I get covered in a purple aura. Does it actually taste good? Taya asked. No, it doesn't taste or feel like anything. It's entirely visual and it usually matches a unicorn's coat color. Is mine pink? Watcher asked. Of course it is, I said. I wondered why at first, until you told me you were originally pink. It's not as bright a pink as shining armors, though. Speaking of, Luna, is it a problem that these guys still look like night guards despite not being on Celestia's payroll? It's not my problem, she replied with a shrug. And if Celestia hasn't complained about it, I doubt it's something she cares about, either. The new Princess Celestia seems too mellow to care about something like that, Watcher said. And the old Princess Celestia was too high-strung to pay attention to unimportant details like that. There's nothing wrong with us keeping these colors. Sure, ahoy, I said, squinting my eyes at him. He nonchalantly stared back. When are you going to inform my sister of your return? Luna asked. About an hour ago, I said. She stopped everything she was doing to come give me a hug. It was very unprincessly of her. Perhaps, but it certainly seems like something she would do, Luna said. We'll need to find a way to keep her busy so she doesn't get her hooves into all of our business. It's too late for that, I said. She already has. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm still somewhat wary of her. Is our long-term plan to stay in Equestria? Watcher asked. That depends on a few factors, I said. I wouldn't mind establishing a nation of my own in Tartarus, if the local races are willing to support me. Everyone knows the best move when it comes to global conquest is to hole up in Australia. Your own nation? Twilight said. I thought you didn't want to be a queen. Or king, I guess. I don't want to be forced to be a super prissy and lovey-dovey queen. I wouldn't mind leading a federation as a dictator of sorts, though. But again, that depends on a lot of factors and I highly doubt it'll work out. If it doesn't, where I go will probably depend on who I marry. That said, Equestria is still going to remain one of the more dominant world powers going forward, purely due to how much territory they control. That means I'll always have a reason to come back. Can't we just subjugate Tartarus and take it by force? Luna asked. Then it wouldn't matter if the locals supported you. If I have to rule with fear and hate, I'd rather not bother taking it in the first place. From the visions I saw in the coma, I know there are fortified cities inside Tartarus, along with roads that connect them. There seem to be defense contracts between the cities to fight back against the demons. I can't rule over a place with a pre-existing society with fear, not and expect anything good to come from it. Did the coma really show you into Tartarus itself? Twilight asked. A little. It showed me a vision of the Alphen I worked with to take down Trixie. Apparently Groger the Lich is also in Tartarus, and has a huge bounty for information about humans. Since I happen to have a lot of that, hopefully getting his support will be easy. Luna, could you take him in a straight-up fight? Me versus him, no problem at all, Luna said. But add in an undead horde and things get more difficult. Most necromantic spells focus on debuffing your enemies, raising the dead, and buffing your strongest pawns. If we have to fight him in his home base, it'll be a nightmarish quagmire. We'll win, but we will take losses. And the worst part is that he wouldn't even die. He keeps his soul tethered to a place that's impossible for the living to get to, so he'd eventually be able to create a new body. Then let's hope it doesn't come to a fight, I said. If he wants information about humans, what makes you think he won't just want humans? Twilight asked. How do we know he won't try to dissect you? Obviously we don't meet him without discovering his intentions first. We'll do recon around Tartarus to determine if talking to him is safe. If I'm still in doubt, I can send a few vassals in to negotiate with him directly. Not it, Watcher immediately said. Well, I'll also be at the head of an equestrian army when I do go to meet him, so that'll be something he has to consider, I said. I know he doesn't care about making enemies with the living, but pursuing his own goals would be easier without the biggest country in the world gunning for him. Judging by what we saw in Athena's book, he seems pretty reasonable. I'm confident we can make a deal with him. With luck, part of that deal can be a soul, or information on how to get one. If anyone out there would have info on souls, it would be the person who's capable of taking his own out. Could you really trust a soul that he gives you? Twilight asked. I'd rather be turned into an undead monstrosity than become Discord's wife, I replied with a shrug. Any soul is better than no soul, as far as I'm concerned. If whatever Groger gives me is corrupt, I'm sure we can find a way to cleanse it later. As we were talking, I heard the sound of scaled feet. It was followed by the smell of cooked meat. Moments later, there were plates in front of me. I hope you're ready to feel my meat inside of you, Spike said. Before I could reply with some of my own dirty puns, I felt a very strong grip on my shoulder. I glanced over and realized Flo was staring me down with an eerie smile on her face, as if she was just daring me. Instead of giving in to my urges, I decided to take the lessons learned from the coma to say, "Thanks for cooking, Spike. Are you going to be joining us?" He seemed a little disappointed that I didn't play along, but noticed the hand digging into my shoulder and decided to give up. "Once everything else is out, yeah. I'll be back soon." Flo released me as Spike went back to the kitchen. "Spike better not put his meat anywhere near you," Twilight said when she was sure he was gone. "If you give him any ideas, I'll punish you." "I've already told him that it's not happening," I said. Of course, that was just a few minutes ago. And it was also after his meat had already been in me. But she definitely didn't need to know any of that, of course. That said, I'll still happily let him cook for me. I do enjoy the taste of his. Flo's arm returned, with a vengeance. "What's wrong with puns, Flo? Why do you hate fun? You went through a 3-week-long coma to correct undesirable habits," Flo said. "I just want to ensure that time wasn't wasted. After all, pun-making is the most undesirable trait one could have. It's tied too deeply into my cynicism and sarcasm," I said. "Without my soul, those things are basically my core. You can't just get rid of it." "Wait, your core is cynicism, sarcasm, and puns?" Twilight asked. "I feel like that explains a lot of things." "Yeah, that kinda sums her up," Taya said. "It really does make complete sense." "Is that why you hate Equestria so much?" Luna asked. "Because all the names of our cities are particularly awful puns of human city names? If one of the 3 pillars of my core was insulted, so I would likely hate the cause as well." "Didn't you have a hoof in naming some of those cities?" Watcher asked. "Yes, but I didn't realize the names I was making were puns on the original human names," Luna said. "It took a history lesson from Flo and Athena, plus information on hauntings from Zecora, to realize that. Didn't you find it so strange how everything so closely mirrored your own time?" "I did," I said. "But without what Zecora told me, there's no way I ever would have figured out the root cause." "Did you feel anything at the time when you were naming the cities? Anything like an outside influence?" "No. It never occurred to me to watch out for it. Who could have expected the dead to so greatly influence the living?" "Fair enough. Anyway, the point is, you'll pry my puns from my cold, dead hands. But don't get comfortable, because I'll be coming back for them as soon as I wake up." "If you say that too much, it loses its effect," Flo replied. "And surely I'm not the only one who agrees. We could use this opportunity as an intervention. Everyone, let's work together to get Nav to give up on puns." "I order my vassals not to do that," I replied, crossing my arms. "And since my Eternifili and the mare who proclaims herself the best for me prefer me as I am, you have no power here. I guess you're practicing your dictator skills?" Watcher asked. "If I don't take a stand for the things that matter, then what kind of lady am I?" I sweetly asked. "So puns are the hill you're choosing to die on?" Cod asked. "I can't say it's the most noble of choices, but I will support my lady in all her endeavors." "I'm not choosing to die," I said. "I'm choosing to fight. And since the vote is clearly in my favor, I'm declaring myself the victor. That said, I will try to limit the naughty ones, especially in public." "It's a start, I suppose," Flo said with a sigh. "Some of them are pretty bad, though," Twilight said. "I've had to restrain myself from shaking you around a few times." "That's just one of the many sacrifices we have to make to deal with Mommy," Taya said. "Think less about how annoying she can be and more about how fun she can be." "That's the right way of looking at it," I said with a nod. "I should be treasured, right?" "Absolutely," Spike said, joining us with even more plates. You're the best treasure of all. That's why the crazy dragoness claimed you, right? She saw your value immediately. Don't you start flirting with my human. Twilight quickly said. Then you should flirt with her more, so I don't have time to, Spike said, bopping her. With that, he took a seat on the far side of the table. His Gilda joined him, almost filling the table up. Then I'll take the chance to feed her tonight. Twilight replied, using magic to grab a fork. Not in front of Princess Gilda you won't, I said. That would just be rude. But since Aurora said it would probably take her about 15 to 20 minutes to get ready, I don't see any reason to wait for her. Then I'll stop when she arrives, Twiggles said, cutting into the thick steak in front of me with magic. I don't know what kind of animal it was from, but it tasted pretty swanky when Twilight fed it to me. I didn't think you'd actually let me do that. I'd hate to betray your expectations. I guess that means I should stop. Her horn lit up slightly brighter and 3 more bites lined up in the air before me. She kept the juices in place with magic. Getting fed really wasn't something I wanted, but fighting it would be more time and effort than it was worth. I guess that was her way of treasuring me, or something. It's definitely good, I said. It's worth being my first meal in 3 weeks. His meat better fill you up in all the right ways, Original Gilda said. Doppel and I had to put up with his whining from wearing that fluffy pink apron. Why did you have a fluffy pink apron for him? I slowly asked. It was another gift from one of your lovers, Kot said. I think the goal was for you to wake them up with breakfast in bed while wearing only the apron. Oh. I left it at that, deciding it best not to probe more. Besides, talking was hard when a mare was trying to choke you with her meat. Dinner ended up being a pretty lively ordeal. Princess Gilda was spared from seeing Twilight feed me, but she still complained about us not waiting for her. Since it was her fault for being slow, I didn't let it bother me much. Almost everyone was also disturbed by how much meat Luna ate. Disturbing was her normal mode, though, so I wasn't too concerned. When everyone was satiated and all the people in the house were congregated, I walked up to the front of the room, opposite the windows. So, as you can all see, I am now out of the coma. I saw a bunch of stuff and I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about some things. Some of what I say may be shocking, but given the nature of our work, I figure you'll get over it quickly. To cut straight to the most shocking part, apparently I've been unconsciously and unknowingly drugging or brainwashing everyone into liking me. That got a few grunts and raised eyebrows. It's a slow, gradual effect that hits people depending on how powerful they are. Those like royalty get hit harder than others and the urge to like instead becomes the urge to own. What are you saying, exactly? Princess Gilda asked, eyes wide. Athena explained it to me the day I entered the coma, and over the course of it, I saw enough evidence that made me think she was telling the truth, I said. I am a human, or at least a derivative of one. You all are half Fae, which are magical beings, and half animal, which are physical beings. The Fae part of you wants to be around humans. The animal part of you adds hormones to the mix, which wildly changes the nature of how you act around humans. According to Athena, this is basically just how things work. Since all of you are part Fae, you're naturally drawn to me. And the stronger you are, the more you feel the need to make me yours. That's preposterous, Luna whispered, sinking down into her chair. Yeah, it's not the greatest, I said. So we need to find a way to get rid of the effect. Celestia also confirmed it, Twilight said. She noticed it by herself, but wasn't sure until after being turned into Nulscha. Are you sure you aren't just using this as an excuse? Princess Gilda asked. You've slept with a lot of royalty. Is this your way of getting out of it all without any consequences? No, I'll admit to being a slut. But a good chunk of the times I've slept with royals have been initiated by the royals, as I'm sure you're well aware. Think back to your brother. He invited me to join the royal harem less than 10 minutes after meeting me. Don't you think that's strange?
No, not at all, Princess Gilda replied. You're beautiful, intelligent, and can revolutionize any country you want at any time you want. Obviously that's something any royal would want, disregarding this mysterious effect you supposedly have.
Nav's telling the truth, Luna slowly said.
Oh, how I hate that it's true. How could I have lost myself so heavily to it?
Because you're insane and have basically no sense of morality. As I said, the more powerful you are, the stronger it affects you. I don't think this refers just to magic power, which means other royalty like Gilda and strong fighters like Kot and the Naga were also probably influenced by it. Obviously, this is a bad thing. You magic-y types need to start working on fixing it. Why do you assume it's something magical?
Taya asked.
I'm not assuming it's caused by something magical. I'm just assuming we can use magic to fix it regardless.
I'm inclined to agree, Twilight said.
And even if not, magic might be able to give us some way to measure it. The only problem is, how can we tell if Nav is still human enough for it to apply? Or do you think Athena and Hera would be able to tell us?
That's something one of you magic-y types will have to ask, I'd say, I replied.
Even if I could understand what she told me, I wouldn't be able to put it into practice until I get a soul. Magic requires one of those, sadly. But it is possible that this effect is already gone, right?
Princess Gilda asked.
It could have disappeared ages ago, right?
I mean, maybe, but my guess is that it's still there.
Or that if it is gone, it was only after I got out of the coma and was more tree than human.
It's okay, Gilda.
You don't have to feel bad for falling for my irresistible human charms. It also happened to affect all the female royalty in Equestria, plus Moonbeam. And for all I know, the real reason Blue Blood hated me is because he was secretly attracted to me and was angry that I made him gay.
I don't think that's true, Luna said.
He almost definitely hated you because you nearly murdered him at a party and got away with no repercussions. Before that, he was just angry. Well, he's dead, so we'll have to agree to disagree. The point is, whatever this pull is, it's caused me no end of suffering. I wanted to make everyone aware of it so you can start watching out for it. If you ever get the urge to either own, molest, get close to, or otherwise bother me, it might just be because I'm human. If you realize that applies to you, please rethink your actions. I don't think any of us feel that way because of the pull anymore, Twilight said. I think we want to be close to you because we enjoy spending time with you, not because we're being influenced or drugged. I mean, that's probably the only reason some of us here gave you the time of day originally, but that's not the case anymore. Well, it's still something to keep in the back of your mind, I said. Let's move on to the second thing I wanted to talk about. Long story short, when I got to this world, I was too busy being angry that my old life was over that I never really focused on the new one I was given. After going through the coma and seeing what happened in the background of my life, I realized that spending the rest of my life angrily reacting instead of intelligently acting was a bad idea. I've spent too long sitting on money-making ideas and things that could possibly change this society for the better. I'm going to start working to shape society. After all, if I'm going to be living in it for a while, I might as well make it a better place.
That's kinda broad, Twilight said.
Magi tech will be a good chunk of it, I said. But that will also include interesting ways of applying Magi tech. With luck, it means I can get a bunch of businesses going. Accruing wealth will be another way for me to build power over time. Money plus businesses will give me influence wherever I go. Basically, I intend to get busy soon. If any of you have skills outside of killing, let me know later. Now that Celestia's on our side, it's less important for all of us to fight. We can just get her army to fight for us. Can we kill freelance style and give you the money we make?
Kot asked.
No, I'm not going to form an assassin's guild in Canterlot, I said. I intend to stay above the law. What about your soul gem harvesting idea? Watcher asked. Those soul gems will be made in changeling territory, and I got permission from their queen, I said. As far as I'm concerned, that makes it legal. We'll also be using those to fuel our war in Tartarus, not as a business venture. Wonderful excuse, Flo said with a wide grin. Thanks, I'm good at them. The third thing I want to say is part of an addendum to the second. Since I spent most of my time being angry at the world, that meant I wasn't usually pleasant to be around. I'm going to work on changing that, though I can't promise how well it'll work. We just recently discovered that the core of my being is cynicism, sarcasm, and puns, so I'll probably be a scumbag until I can get a soul, but I'm gonna do my best to change. Wasn't the point of the coma to make you change? Spike asked. No, apparently it was just supposed to show me why I needed to. That said, if I wasn't as emotionally dead inside as I am, the things I saw would have changed me considerably. As it was, I got pretty upset at a lot of the memories, but none of them truly changed me. Yeah, some were kinda brutal, Taya said. But apparently I missed a lot of the good ones with Celestia and Luna. Another fun point is that Taya is going to work on being less terrifying, I said. I knew some people were afraid of her, but neither of us had any idea that the number one rule on the ship was to avoid her. Everyone suddenly wanted to avert their gazes. That's okay. She understands that she's supposed to be a good little Eternophily. She'll be taking young lady courses soon. I'll be the perfect, least scary filly ever. Taya said. And then when you're all finally fooled, I'll get my revenge. Are you sure you're trying to be less scary? One of the more suicidal guards asked. My revenge will be with Snuggles, of course, Taya said. And a camera, for blackmail material. You know, maybe. Or maybe not. Because I'm scary, right? It's a work in progress, I said with a shrug. If she does something scary, please let her know. Having a predator as a parent has warped her sensibilities a little. Oh sure, that's the reason, Princess Gilda muttered. I did the adult thing and ignored her, obviously. Taya did the filly thing and stuck her tongue out at the princess. And that's really the last thing I wanted to say, I said, looking around the room. I'm going to start working on becoming better. It's the responsibility of everyone here minus Flo to help me in that endeavor. Why not me? Flo demanded. Because you hate puns and I don't want to be led down the wrong path. She sighed and face-palmed. With that, I think I'm heading upstairs to go to bed. Luna and Kot, I'd like to talk to you in the morning, so don't head out to the bunker immediately. What about the rest of us? Spike asked. I wouldn't mind talking to the rest of you more tomorrow as well. But it's already past dark, so I don't want to stay up too much later. My plant-like body demands rest. We'll have our meals before the sun sets, from now on, Doppel said with a smile. Good. And good night to all of you. It's good to see everyone again and to finally be awake. I'll tuck you in, Flo said, surging forward. I'm sure more people wanted to bother me before I could leave, but Flo carried me out of the room with a large wave. I had a feeling you would have been there all night if something wasn't done. Probably, I said. But couldn't you have used Taya to teleport me upstairs instead? Yes, but then I wouldn't get to tuck you in. Is that really necessary? I ask. Unless you wanted Kot, Doppel, Princess Gilda, and Twilight to all volunteer one after another, yes. This way, Twilight can join you surreptitiously. Or if you'd prefer, I can do the job instead and put you to sleep after. I'll be fine waiting, I said. If she doesn't show, that would be fine, too. We finally got to my room. She barged in like she owned the place, used tendrils to strip the dress right off me, and tossed me onto the bed. By the time I could bounce, she was already back on me. One of her hands gripped my mouth and I felt some water gush in, surrounding all my teeth. It swished around a few times before her hand pulled away. And now your teeth are clean. They'll lack a minty scent, though. That's acceptable. But I could have just brushed them. I enjoy taking care of you, Flo said, carefully pulling the blanket up around me. I assumed you would be more receptive to it, if you're allowing Twilight to feed you. Especially after all those awful things you saw in the coma. If I start letting everyone do everything for me, I'll either end up a layabout or like Hira. I'll be sure to restrict it to when we're alone, of course, Flo said, bopping me on the nose. Would you like me to sing you a lullaby? No. I'll relax for a bit on the energy I have left over, and if Twilight doesn't show up, I'll just have one of you put me to sleep. Fine. I'll just play you one on the piano, then. Please don't. If you want, I guess. Maybe 3 or 4, then. Good night, Navi. She slid out the door, giggling at all the mean things I was thinking. Hopefully I wouldn't be able to hear it with the door closed, but I wasn't holding my breath. Of course I could. She began playing seconds after leaving my room, so she probably didn't even bother using the staircase. For better or worse, Twilight quickly arrived to distract me. As if I wasn't sure before, that was enough for me to be positive that I was finally out of the coma. Since I had those thoughts right as I was finally falling asleep, they didn't really mean all that much. Still, my first day back felt like it went pretty well. End of Chapter 200. The Awakening.